Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to be going into Daniel, the 5th chapter, dealing with Belshazzar and pretty much the fall of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So when you read really from Daniel 1 to Daniel 5, that's really the time period recorded in the book of Daniel about the Babylonian Empire, and that after that is when you have the Persians come up in there. All right, so Daniel chapter 5, just a bit of context on here. Daniel chapter 5, because when we read in chapter 4, all right, it spoke about in the book of Nezer and how the Most High humbled him, by giving him the mind of a beast for a period of time. Okay, and then the Most High basically gave him his mind back. Okay, but between Daniel 4 and Daniel 5, a lot has transpired. Okay, a lot of different kings have come in, to rule and died and gone and so on and so forth. And now we're pretty much at the last point, all right, before the fall of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So let's start with the first verse, and then let's get a bit of context or background, so that going through this chapter, things can make a bit more sense. So Daniel chapter 5 verse 1, Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. Now it says here Belshazzar the king, and that was because he was the one ruling at this time, but that was because his father was absent. Okay, Belshazzar's father, being Nabonidus, was absent. So Belshazzar was really playing king in the stead of his father, more like a regent, not the actual official king yet, because his father was still alive at that point. All right, so let's find out a bit about Belshazzar, and then let's go from there. So this is a resource in the Blue Letter. All right, when you use the dictionaries, if you click on tools and you go to dictionaries, you can look up some of the names or words, and they can actually give you a bit of context as to who or what it's talking about based on what dictionary you're using. Okay, so here I just looked into the Eastern Bible's dictionary on the name Belshazzar, and it says here, Belshazzar, Bel, protect the king, the last of the kings of Babylon, pursuant to Daniel 5 and 1. He was the son of Nabonidus by Nitocris, who was the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar, and the widow of Nergal-Sharezer. When still young, he made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and when heated with wine, sent for the sacred vessels of his quote-unquote father or grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from the temple in Jerusalem, and he and his princes drank out of them. Now, one thing I want to do real quick is see if this name comes up in any other precepts in here. All right, so it doesn't. Cool. So basically what's going on here? Here it's saying here, and I agree with this the information that they've put here. If you do some research on it, you'll find, because whenever you deal with history, right, in most cases when you deal with secular history, a lot of things are not exact. There are a lot of assumptions or ideas that are just generally agreed upon, but so there's some things there's just not enough archaeological information on for them to make like a definitive conclusion to say this is exactly what happened, or this is exactly this person, or so on and so forth. So a lot of situations, even dates are circa, right? Give or take, it's this date. Or sometimes they need to draw assumptions, maybe using deductive reasoning based on the limited information they have in order to give you that picture that when you go on, maybe for example, Wikipedia, you can read on there. All right, so here it's saying that the father of Belshazzar was Nabonidus, right? And these were both Assyrians as well. And the mother of Belshazzar was Nitocris. So when you read, as we're going to keep on reading, Belshazzar's Nebuchadnezzar is referred to as Belshazzar's father, but in actuality, the word there is really referring to his grandfather, okay, or his ancestor, because sometimes the scripture will say that, right? An example is when you read in the scriptures, there are certain parts when an individual dies or passes away, the saying is he slept with his fathers. Well, he really has only one father, but fathers as in like his forefathers, because they're also dead, right? And so here when it says father, it's really referring to Belshazzar's grandfather, which is Nebuchadnezzar. And the way Belshazzar is related to Nebuchadnezzar is through his mother's side, meaning Nebuchadnezzar's daughter, okay, which is who is referred to here as Nitocris, is the mother of Belshazzar. So that's the line that connects him to Nebuchadnezzar. And then we're gonna go through that here in the lineage as well. But just to keep reading here, where are we? Okay, it says, in the midst of their mad revelry, a hand was seen by the king, tracing on the wall the announcement of God's judgment, which that night fell upon him. At the instance of the queen, i.e. his mother, Daniel was brought in, and he interpreted the writing. That night the kingdom of the Chaldeans came to an end, and the king was slain. And that's that over there. What do we have for Nergal-Sharezer? Do they have anything interesting? It's interesting that they have him on here because in that word search we didn't pop up. Okay, let's see what it says here for Nergal-Sharezer. It says, Nergal protect the king, one of the princes of the king of Babylon who accompanied him in his last expedition against Jerusalem, which is in Jeremiah 39:3. Oh, I see. So it's all together. It's not even spaced out. Nergal-Sharezer. Let's look that up again. Nergal-Sharezer. Perfect. There we are. So Nebuzaradan, the captain of the king's guard, sent and Cyrus. All right, so let's keep reading. Let's get some more context on here. Another one of the princes who bore the title Rabmag. He is one of those who were sent to release Jeremiah from prison by the captain of the guard. He was a Babylonian grandee of high rank. From profane history and inscriptions, we are led to conclude that he was the Neriglissar who murdered evil Merodach, the son of Nebuchadnezzar, and succeeded him on the throne of Babylon, and so on and so forth. All right, so this is pretty good. We're not going to read all the way throughout. This is pretty good for now. And yeah, this is all pretty good for now. So when we come back here to Daniel chapter 5, verse 1, some context here is that in Daniel 4, we were dealing with Nebuchadnezzar, okay? And if we click on here, if you just look up Nebuchadnezzar II, when you actually go on this side, you can see his reign, his predecessors, and his successors. So after Nebuchadnezzar died, his son, Amel-Marduk, okay, is the one that basically comes up into power, and he rules. In the scriptures, he's referred to as evil Merodach, right? That's what he's referred to in the Bible. But here in secular history, they have his name here as Amel-Marduk, which probably is the same thing. Amel is probably like another way of saying evil, and who knows. Or here it says here, man of Marduk, in the Babylonian cuneiform. Now, this individual, Amel-Marduk, is actually referred to in the scriptures, and he is, because when you follow the line of the kings of Judah, getting to the ending of the kingdom of Judah before we were taken captive into Babylon, all right, taken down by the Babylonians. Remember that Yahushua, the Messiah, came from the line, right, of David. So that means that throughout the different captivities that we were in, the lineage of King David had to be preserved in order for the Messiah to eventually come through the loins of David in his generation. So we know that King Josiah was one of those kings. He was from the line of David. Okay, and one of his sons, Jehoiakim, all right, I believe that was Jehoiakim, who was a wicked individual who was also set up as king over there. That would make him of the line of David as well. Okay, now Jehoiakim had a son, Jehoiakim, who Nebuchadnezzar had taken captive to Babylon. All right, and it was this individual, Amel Marduk, or Evil Merodach, that basically showed favor to Jehoiakim while he was in Babylon. Okay, and that's here in Jeremiah, the 52nd chapter. Jeremiah 52 also gives some good context as to the ending of the, how the Babylonians took down Jerusalem, and, it gives some historical context in there, right? But let's read this. This is Jeremiah 52 and 30. In the 23rd year of Nebuchadrezzar, this is just how it's spelled here, but it's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away the captives of the Jews, 745 persons. All the persons were 4,600. And it came to pass in the 37th year of the captivity of Jehoiakim, right, king of Judah, because he was also taken captive, in the 12th month, in the 25th day of the month, that Evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the 1st year of his reign, lifted up the head of Jehoiakim, king of Babylon, Slakia, king of Judah, and brought him forth out of prison. So the father of Evil Merodach is Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar took Jehoiakim captive along with some of the Israelites to Babylon. So Jehoiakim was in Babylon as a captive, all right, up until Nebuchadnezzar died, and Nebuchadnezzar's son, Evil Merodach, or Amel Marduk, came up into power to reign. And during his reign, the Lord put the spirit on him to have mercy on Jehoiakim and to bring him out of prison. Verse 32, and why did the Lord do that? Because the Jehoiakim was of the line of the seed of David, and his lineage needed to be preserved. And spake kindly unto him, and set his throne above the throne of the kings that were with him in Babylon, and changed his prison garments, and he did continually eat bread before him all the days of his life. And for his diet there was a continual diet given him of the king of Babylon, every day a portion until the day of his death, all the days of his life. See? So why did the Lord have this happen? Because he had to preserve that line, so that, that seed can go on, so eventually the Messiah could come through the loins of David. All right, and I think there's actually a historical account of this here. If we keep reading about Amel Marduk here, before we move on to the next individual, let's see, I think, yeah. All right, here we are. Let me see what else they got. Let me come down here. Okay, it says here, it says the Bible states that Amel Marduk freed Jeconiah, which is another name for Jehoiakim, king of Judah, after 37 years of imprisonment in Babylon. The only concrete political act attributed to Amel Marduk is an extant source, though such acts of clemency are known from ascension ceremonies, and in this case may have been connected to the celebration of the Babylonian New Year's festival. There's an account here. I want to see if I can find it. Where they said that they actually found records of the rations that were given to by Amel Marduk to Jeconiah or Jehoiakim. I just want to know if I can find it on here. But if not, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Let's see. Let's maybe look up. Bear with me 1 second. It's a lot of information in here, so. All right, let's see. Jeconiah released from captivity. All right, let's see what it says here. It says, the 37th year of captivity was thus by Judean reckoning the year that began in Tishri of 562, consistent with the synchronism of the ascension year of Amel Marduk given in Babylonian records. That's right. All right, yeah, I can't find too much information on this, but that's okay. That's besides the point. So we had Nebuchadnezzar that reigned, right? His son Amel Marduk reigned after him, and after Amel Marduk came Neriglissar. Okay, and this individual Neriglissar is who we're reading of in the blue letter as Nergal-Sharezer, and apparently he basically usurped the throne. All right, so he basically ended up putting to death Amel Marduk, and then he came up there into power. All right, and so after him, you had his son Labishai Marduk, who lived a very short period of time before he was also put to death. And after him came Nabonidus, and Nabonidus was really the last king, the last official king of Babylon. Okay, and his Nabonidus' son is who we are reading of as Belshazzar. So as you can see, this is the line of the succession of kings from Nebuchadnezzar, right? And we can see that Nabonidus wasn't a direct son or really a direct descendant of Nebuchadnezzar. So how would it be that Belshazzar, who is the son of Nabonidus, would be related to Nebuchadnezzar? And like I mentioned, that's because of the mother of Belshazzar, meaning the wife of Nabonidus was actually a daughter of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, and as you can see here, and they put a question mark because there's not really too much information that they have found on this. But if you look here, you can see it says the father of Belshazzar is Nabonidus, and the mother of Belshazzar is Nitocris, okay, who is a daughter of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so that should be enough background on Daniel 5 leading up to this point. So now when you read from verse 4 to 5, you can see a lot has happened. A lot has gone through. Different kings have come and so on and so forth. And now we're at the last end. So in Daniel 5:1, the father of Belshazzar is absent, okay, and Belshazzar is reigning in his stead as like a regent. So let's read this. It says, Belshazzar the king made a feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. Now we know that when it says here his father, it's really referring to his grandfather. Okay, and let's look up here the word father. It should be Abba in the Hebrew. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, Abba, right? And here it says father. This is the Aramaic corresponding to the actual Hebrew here, Abba. And as you can see, it says father of an individual, of God as father to his people, head or founder of a household, group, family, or clan, ancestor, grandfather, forefathers of person of people. It's the same word that is used in these different contexts. So it could be referring to your grandfather, but the word there is Abba, right? As in father. Because your grandfather is still a father of you. He's just your grandfather. Anyway, let's keep on reading. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. So here you can imagine this big banquet feast going on. They're drinking, they're getting drunk, and he's like, yo, go get me the vessels of gold that were brought from Jerusalem. Right? They really wanted to go all in. So here it is, they're drinking from these vessels and they're praising their gods. All right, verse 5. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. So here it is, you chilling. He, he probably turns his neck. He turns his neck one way. He just sees like hands, just fingers writing upon the wall. And you can imagine what happens then, right? Nobody sees that and is just excited about it. Verse 6, then the king's countenance was changed. So he went from being in that jolly, folly, merry spirit, laughing and whatever, drinking and all of that, probably yelling and screaming and whatever. And in the ancient world, these banquets, they got music going. They got like performers, dancing or singing or whatever. And all of a sudden, you just see a hand writing on the wall. And then all of a sudden, his mood got killed quick. And he's now he goes from excited to afraid very quickly. It says, and his thoughts troubled him, because now he's wondering what in the hell is going on here. So he's wondering, is it the alcohol? Is it the wine? Or is he just bugging out? So that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against another. Now, when you look this up here, if the joints of your loins get loosed, you're pretty much, next to crapping yourself. Okay. When you look at some other translations, the New King James Version says that the joints of his hips were loosened. His knees knocked together in fear, and his legs and his legs gave way beneath him. Yeah, that's what you get. So next time you're gonna think twice before trying to drink out of the vessels of the Lord and praise other gods. He was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. His thoughts alarmed him, his limbs gave way, and his knees knocked together. And his thoughts so terrified him that he soiled himself and his knees knocked together. Yeah, and that's why when people when people are afraid, sometimes they'll do that. They'll soil themselves. Okay. Especially if you look at like pigs. If you ever go to a farm or whatever, and maybe they're like getting ready to go and, slaughter a pig, when the pig knows. So when the because maybe that pig has seen the farmer come in there and take one of them other pigs out, and the pig never came back, and they just heard like squealing. So when this pig comes, when the farmer steps in there, them pigs are running left, right, and they're all trying to stay together, bunched up, trying to hide each other. So when a pig senses that the farmer is singling him out and they coming for him, he knows his time is up. He's going to be turned into, some ham or some shit. So they get instantly afraid, and you'll see he'll start to shit. They'll start to like defecate a lot, because of that fear that them joints get loosed. Okay. I think there was even a South Park episode about that. But anyway, so he gets very afraid. Verse 7, the king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men. So all of a sudden, all that music, everything stops. Now there's a serious matter. Now everybody's going, oh, what's going on? Oh shit, what? Oh shit, what's going on with the king? Oh, he said, get the wise men to challenge shit. What's up? Everybody's now concerned. What's happening? And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and shew me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Now, number one, this scarlet here, all right, I think this is like a purplish red when it talks about scarlet, because you might be wondering what is so special about scarlet that he is offering this as though it's a high reward. But when you look into this, let's see, it says purple, red purple. Now this goes back to a certain dye. Okay, I think it's referred to as a Tyrian purple, and it's a certain dye, and we're actually going to look it up here. Let's see, Tyrian purple dye. Yeah, there we go. And it was a very, very like expensive and difficult to gain dye that they would use to then make garments. Okay, so it says Tyrian purple, also known as royal purple, imperial purple, or imperial dye, is a reddish purple natural dye. Now, the reason it was known as a royal purple or an imperial purple is because it's very, very expensive. So typically, it would only make sense that the royalty are the ones that would be able to be seen wearing this high level garment, okay, or seen with this dye. The name Tyrian refers to Tyre, Lebanon. It is secreted by several species of predatory sea snails in the family Muricidae, rock snails originally known by the name murex. In ancient times, extracting this dye involved tens of thousands of snails and substantial labor. And as a result, the dye was highly valued. Okay, so when he said that the person would be clothed with a scarlet, that was a very valuable garment or clothing that they would give whoever it is that would be able to do this. Okay, so it says here, he will be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Now, the reason he said that is because, remember, at this point in time, who is the number one ruler? The first ruler is Nabonidus. He is the official king, the last king of Babylon. Belshazzar was the second ruler because he was a prince, the heir to the throne, and he was ruling, as like a regent in the stead of his father, because his father was absent at this time. Okay, and you can do research. Some sources say that he was going about rededicating, building up temples to the moon god Sin. Some say he was out on an expedition or whatever the case is. You can do research, and if you're interested, to find out what Nabonidus was doing at this time. But that would mean that the highest other form of authority that could be given you would be the third. Okay, and so this was like some high stakes that Belshazzar had put on the table here, because he was that afraid. Verse 8, then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, because now he was really afraid. Because even if the wise man can interpret this and read it and tell me what it means, then damn. And his countenance was changed in him, and his lords were astonished. So everybody was surprised. Because remember, this is a banquet, this is a feast. All his lords, his wives, everybody's over there. And now the mood just changed quick. It went from partying to now an eerie, scary, mood. Verse 10. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house. Now remember, when it says here the king, it's talking about Belshazzar, but he's really not the official king. He's really the prince. Okay. And in that case, the queen here is referring to his mother. And you can even tell based on the way, this next few verses are worded, you can tell that the way it refers to the queen, it doesn't even sound as though that is his wife, because it mentioned in the first verse that he had his wives there at the banquet. Okay. So it says here, now the queen, by reasons of the words of the king, Belshazzar, and his lords, came into the banquet house. So she wasn't there to begin with. And the queen spake and said, and it wouldn't make sense for this to be a wife of Belshazzar, because officially, right, if she is the queen and officially he is not the king, and officially the king is Nabonidus, then it would make sense, right? The queen would be his mother. But it says here, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And in the days of thy father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar thy father The king, I say, thy father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. So she's basically sounded like she's giving him a history lesson, like just giving him that account. Although he I'm sure he heard of it, okay, giving him that account, and it sounds like she was there, right? For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams and shewing of hard sentences, and dissolving of doubts were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will shew thee the interpretation. Now you can imagine that Daniel at this point is no longer like a young man, right? Because he was a young man at the time of, let's go back and look at Nebuchadnezzar II. So Daniel was a young man at the time when he was taken captive. He was like, young, maybe even a boy. At the time when he was taken captive to Babylon. And we can date that somewhere around, let's see, where does it say destruction of Jerusalem? Okay, in 589 BC, Zedekiah refused to pay tribute to Nebuchadnezzar, and it didn't end up too well for him. Daniel was taken captive, a little before that. So we can just put at maybe like 586, 587, somewhere around there, or maybe even 590, wherever, because time moves forward by decrementing, right? When you BC, time in the BC era was when you go forward in time, the date goes down. So from 589, 588, 587, you're really going into the future. But even if we put it somewhere around here, like 590, for example, right? From 590 all the way to about 539, give or take, which is about the time of Belshazzar, right? If we go down, and we look here, and we get all the way down to, where's Belshazzar? Belshazzar. They placed Belshazzar here. This is when he died. It says he died here 539 BC. Now, that's what we're reading of in Daniel the 5th chapter. That's around the same time that happens. So all the way from like 590 to like 539, or maybe even if you round it up to 540, that's like a good 50 years, just like roughly. So yeah, let's keep going. And we know Daniel lives a little longer than that as well. But anyway, at this point, Daniel is called, all right, verse 13. Then was Daniel brought in before the king. And the king spake and said unto Daniel, Art thou that Daniel, which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? I have even heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing, and make known unto me the interpretation thereof, but they could not show me the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretations, and dissolve doubts. Now if thou canst read the writing, and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and thou shalt be the third ruler in the kingdom. Please, read the joint and tell me what it means. Because right now, I'm bugging out. Verse 17. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, Let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known to him the interpretation. O thou king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar, thy father, a kingdom, and majesty, and glory, and honor. And for the majesty that he gave them, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would, he slew, and whom he would, he kept alive, and whom he would, he set up, and whom he would, he put down. So the Lord gave your grandfather a lot of power. He raised him up. He put him in a high position. All right. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild asses. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over it whomsoever he will. So basically, he was refreshing Belshazzar's mind that you remember your grandfather in the book of Nezer, right? And how high he was, right? We all know how much power he had. He reigned, the glorious reign. But even him, when he got proud, the Most High basically turned him into an animal. Okay, and he was eating he was eating grass like oxen. Okay, he was treated like an animal. And thou, his son, O Belshazzar, has not humbled thine heart, though thou knewest all of this. So knowing all of this, you ain't learned from that, did you? Verse 23, but hast lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords, thy wives and thy concubines have drunk wine in them. And thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold, of brass, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know. And the God in whose hand thy breath is, and whose are all thy ways, thou hast not glorified. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the writing that was written. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. So pretty much, mene, your time is up. Okay? The allotted time for your kingdom to reign, for you to rule, that's up. Tekel, you were weighed in the balance, you were found wanting, meaning you're lacking. You're undisciplined, you're lacking. All right. Peres, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. And guess what? At this point in time, this was Daniel was witnessing pretty much what the first half of the vision that Nebuchadnezzar had about the statue. Because what was getting ready to happen right here, that Peres was the head of gold transitioning now into that upper body. I believe it was of silver. Okay, let's see, what's that? Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Go down to the yeah, here we go. Verse 39, Daniel 2 and 39. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over thee. So yeah, I think the second kingdom was silver. Let's go back up. His head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver. Yeah. So that's what Daniel was witnessing, that he lived through that, because the Babylonian Empire was now given now to the hands of the Persians and the Medes, primarily the Persians, because they were the top dog. Okay. And in the history known as the Achaemenid Empire. Verse 29. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. So pretty much he didn't have a choice. He said, you gonna put this on. Verse 30. In that night, that very same night, was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So what happened in that night? In that night, let's look up here real quick. Fall of Neo-Babylonian Empire. We don't need the map. Okay, and let's see what happened here in the... Okay. So it says here, the Neo-Babylonian Empire or Second Babylonian Empire, historically known as the Chaldean Empire, was the last polity ruled by monarchs native to Mesopotamia, beginning with the coronation of Nabopolassar as the king of Babylon in 626 BC, and being firmly established through the fall, right? Nabopolassar being the father of Nebuchadnezzar, and being firmly established through the fall of the Neo-Assyrian Empire in 612 BC. The Neo-Babylonian Empire was conquered by the Achaemenid Empire, which is the Medo-Persian Empire, or the Achaemenid Persian Empire in 539 BC. That's that night that Belshazzar was slain, marking the collapse of the Chaldean dynasty less than a century after its founding. Now let's come down. Let's come down right here. Right here. Let's see what we got here. A bit of background. Okay. All right. Let's actually look up where's Belshazzar. Let's look up his death. See what we find on that. Where are you? Fate. Yeah, here we are. So it says here, regardless of any potential animosity between Nabonidus and Belshazzar, Belshazzar retained the status of crown prince and intended successor, as a handful of documents still reference the son of the king. Otherwise, his status and position after Nabonidus' return is never made clear. The sources also do not make Belshazzar's location clear, but it appears that he was stationed some distance away from Babylon, but that he was also no longer in Sippar, where he had stationed himself in 546 out of fear of Cyrus. Because at this point in time, what was happening? At this point in time, when the Babylonians were reigning, the Lord raised up Cyrus, who was a Persian, okay? And he also started, amassing and growing and coming up because he was the next, the Achaemenid Empire was the next empire that was going to reign. One possibility suggested by Paul Allen Beaulieu is that Belshazzar was put in charge of Babylonia's defense and was moving with the army along the northern and eastern border. Belshazzar partook in Babylon's defense against the invasion of Cyrus the Great in 539 BC. After a decisive victory at the Battle of Opis, the Persian army on October 12, led by Ugbaru, entered Babylon without a fight. The last tablet dated to Nabonidus' reign is from Uruk and is dated October 13th, which is considered the end date of his reign. Nabonidus was captured and possibly exiled to Carmania. Belshazzar's fate is not known, which we know according to the scriptures he was put to death. It is often assumed that he was killed by the Persians at Babylon when the city fell, on October 12. He may have alternatively been killed already at the Battle of Opis. Well, we know that he was actually killed in Babylon as it is written in Daniel the 5th chapter. All right, now here's the thing about Darius the Mede. When you read in Daniel chapter 5, Darius the Median is the actual Median. In history is known as Astyages. Darius the Mede is actually the grandfather of Cyrus. Okay, and when Cyrus came up into power, he actually ended up because the Medians, right, were ruling. Okay, they were ruling at the same time that the Babylonians were ruling. So when Cyrus came up into power, he ended up taking over the Median kingdom and then subjecting the Medes under the Persians because he was a Persian. But the thing is, Cyrus's grandfather was Darius the Mede through his mother's side. Okay, so Darius the Mede, or Astyages, had a daughter. I believe her name was Mandane, and she had a son. Okay, which is Cyrus. She had a son with a Persian king, Cambyses the First, and that's how you have Cyrus. Okay, and he comes up, and when he took over the kingdom of the Medes, he took them down. Basically, defeated his grandfather. He didn't put his grandfather to death. Okay, he had mercy on him when you read in the secular history. So ultimately, when the Persians took over they took over Babylon, what Cyrus ended up doing was he ended up giving that province of Babylon to Darius to basically govern or to rule. All right, so that's why it says here that Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old, which is 62 years old. So he was already, pretty aged at this point. Now, when you go into the word took in the here you can see it says here quabal, right? And it says to receive, right? That's the definition right here, to receive. When you go into the Hebrew, to take is laquach. That's to take. Okay. Here you have quabal, which is to receive. Let's see what it says here in the Strong's. Yeah, see? And in the Hebrew as well, is once again quabal. It says to take, receive. Okay, to accept, to assume, basically to receive one to the other. All right. So Darius was given jurisdiction over the province of Babylon, and that was like a form of mercy that Cyrus showed him. And when you actually go into the Apocrypha, was it Bel and the Dragon? Let's see, Bel and the Dragon. Yeah, so Bel and the Dragon, chapter 1, verse 1, it says, and King Astyages, which is Darius the Mede, was gathered to his fathers, meaning he died. And Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom. And where was Astyages or Darius the Median ruling? He was ruling in Babylon. So basically Cyrus gave him that, say you can reign over there. And then eventually, because he was already up in age, when he ended up dying, then Cyrus basically said, all right, probably either he went over there and continued maybe ruling from that area, or probably set somebody else up over there. Because remember, when you're a king, right, you can look up let's see, did it have any maps? Let's look up Neo-Babylonian Empire again. If you take a look at this, this is a large region that you're ruling over, right? So the king that's ruling over this region, obviously he's not residing in every part of this. There's a specific location where they have it as the capital, where this person is going to reign from. So some kings will reign from here. Some will say, no, I don't want to reign from here. I'm going to have a palace over here and I'll reign from here. All right. And so that, that could have been the case, right? Cyrus is like, all right, you know what? Now, and Darius is just gone, I'm going to go and reign from Babylon, or whatever the case is. All right. But that's pretty much Daniel, the 5th chapter. In summary, it just talks about Belshazzar and the judgment the Lord brought to pretty much end the kingdom of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. All right, and that ends in Daniel chapter 5. So with that, Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.